The golden hour of the afternoon has finally reached its quiet, inevitable end, surrendering the sky to the heavy, peaceful blanket of twilight. Above the infinitely rolling, gentle green hills of the Shire, the sun is melting away, a soft, hazy sphere of pale amber that dips slowly below the curved horizon. As it sinks, it pulls the brightest light of the day down with it, leaving behind a vast, breathless canopy painted in deep blue sea hues and soft violet shadows. The transition is profoundly slow, a natural, rhythmic exhale of the world itself. You can watch as the sky transitions from the warm remnants of daytime gold into the muted, cooling tones of dusk, a classical oil painting coming to life in the heavens above. The clouds, once bright and billowing, now stretch into thin, sleepy ribbons of indigo and rose, catching the very last, fading whispers of sunlight. There is absolutely no rush in this changing of the guard. The sky darkens with a measured, soothing grace, wrapping the vast agricultural sanctuary in a layer of profound visual safety. The harshness of the bright day is entirely gone, replaced by a visual softness that tells your mind it is time to stop, time to slow down, and time to rest. Down below, the landscape responds to the dimming sky with a deep, earthy exhale of its own. The Shire is a land of good tilled earth and well-ordered countryside, entirely free from the noise and complication of heavy machinery or rushed industry. Here, the hills do not merely exist, they slumber, covered in a thick, rich tapestry of ancient moss, soft clover, and deep emerald grass that now takes on a darker, cooler tone in the fading light. As the sun disappears, the shadows stretch out incredibly long and thin across the meadows, pooling in the small hollows and gentle valleys. These shadows are not frightening. They are deeply protective, filling the spaces between the ancient trees and the winding hedgerows with a rich, velvety darkness. The air itself begins to change, losing the dry heat of the afternoon and taking on a crisp, refreshing coolness that carries the undeniable scent of damp soil, crushed mint, and wild snapdragons closing their petals for the night. You can feel this cooling air brushing against your skin, a gentle, invisible weight that soothes the lingering warmth of the day away. The leaves of the massive oak and elm trees, which stand like quiet sentinels across the land, rustle with an infinitely slow, hypnotic rhythm in the evening breeze. Every aspect of life in this quiet land is tied to the deeply predictable, comforting cycle of nature. As the twilight deepens into a profound, dreamy dusk, the gentle agricultural labors of the Hobbit folk naturally cease. There are no sudden whistles, no urgent demands to finish a task, only the gradual, collective laying down of wooden spades, woven wicker baskets, and iron gardening shears. The residents of this peaceful realm understand that the night is exclusively meant for rest, shelter, and comfort. You can sense the collective deceleration of an entire community. The watermills down by the river slow their heavy, rhythmic turning, as the water flow is gently redirected, creating a low, soothing hum that vibrates faintly through the ground. The fields of cabbages, turnips, and potatoes, which were carefully tended to under the sun, are now left to drink in the evening dew. The profound quiet that settles over the Shire is not an empty silence, but rather a thick acoustic blanket woven from the tiniest, most relaxing natural sounds. It is the sound of absolute safety, an insulated sanctuary. The mind requires no problem solving here. There is nothing left to achieve, nothing left to mend, and nowhere else you need to be. You find yourself walking along one of the many winding dirt paths that weave their way through the rolling hills and deep green valleys. The path is soft under your feet, worn smooth by generations of quiet, unhurried footsteps. It is a path that knows only the gentle weight of those returning to the absolute security of their homes. As you walk, your own pace naturally slows, matching the sleepy rhythm of the land around you. The path gently curves, offering no sharp turns or unexpected sights, only a continuous, meandering ribbon of pale earth leading deeper into the heart of the Shire. The tall grass on either side of the path brushes softly against your ankles, a tactile reminder of the earth's proximity and its grounding embrace. Far ahead, the silhouettes of round hills bump gently against the darkening sky, resembling sleeping giants that have settled down into the earth for a long, undisturbed slumber. The twilight has now erased the sharp boundaries of the world, employing a masterful painterly technique that blends the horizon into the sky, the trees into the shadows, and the path into the enveloping dusk. You are simply drifting through a space where time has lost its urgency. As the path rounds the gentle slope of a massive ancient hill, the dwellings of the Shire finally begin to reveal themselves, nestled seamlessly into the landscape. These are not tall, imposing structures of cold stone or harsh angles, but earth-sheltered smiles, hobbit holes dug deep into the warm, protective soil. The architecture here is a celebration of the curve, mimicking the natural rolling geometry of the earth itself. You can just barely make out the perfectly round, painted wooden doors set deeply into the grassy banks, their brass knobs catching the faintest glint of the dying twilight. Slowly, one by one, the lights begin to appear. They are not the harsh, blinding glares of modern illumination, but the soft, discreet, deeply warm glows of lantern light and hearth fires. A deeply amber, warm glow spills gently from the deep-set round windows, casting a masterfully painted chiaroscuro effect against the cooling, deep blue shadows of the hillside. Each small window becomes a beacon of domestic comfort, signaling a space filled with thick woolen blankets, well-stocked pantries, and an unshakable sense of peace. The sight of these subterranean sanctuaries, glowing in the profound dusk, speaks directly to the most tired parts of your mind. The journey of the day is finally over. The winding dirt path continues its slow, meandering ascent, guiding your gentle footsteps deeper into the heart of the secluded hill. You are walking along Bagshot Row, a quiet, tucked-away lane where the earth itself seems to reach out and embrace the dwellings carved into its side. The profound stillness of the evening has settled heavily over the landscape, leaving nothing but the soft, rhythmic sound of your own breathing and the occasional, sleepy rustle of leaves overhead. There is a deeply rooted sense of history in this soil, a comforting predictability that has remained completely unchanged for countless, quiet generations. The air has grown cooler now, carrying the rich, damp fragrance of turned earth, sleeping gardens, and the very faint, sweet memory of late summer flowers. The shadows stretch out like long, protective arms, wrapping the rolling hills in a blanket of absolute security. You feel the cool, refreshing night air brushing against your cheeks, gently washing away the last, lingering traces of the waking day. With every slow, measured step upon the smooth, ancient stones of the pathway, the complexities of the outside world dissolve further into the mist, leaving only the pure, uncomplicated reality of returning to a place of perfect rest. As the pathway gently curves along the natural contour of the hillside, a single, welcoming destination emerges from the deepening shadows. Nestled seamlessly within a massive, grass-covered mound is a traditional smile, an earth-sheltered home that represents the very pinnacle of domestic comfort and absolute safety. This is not merely a house built upon the land, but a sanctuary woven directly into the living, breathing fabric of the earth itself. The architecture is a masterpiece of gentle curves and rounded edges, deliberately designed to mirror the soothing, rolling geometry of the natural world. There are no sharp corners here, no rigid lines or harsh, imposing structures to startle the eye or awaken the weary mind. Instead, the grassy roof blends invisibly into the meadow above, thick with ancient moss and the soft, sleeping tendrils of wild ivy. A low, curved retaining wall made of heavy, smooth river stones frames the entrance, offering a tactile boundary between the vast, open night and the deeply insulated refuge within. The heavy silence of the environment acts as a protective shell, ensuring that nothing from the loud, unpredictable world beyond the Shire can ever reach this completely isolated haven. You come to a slow, effortless halt before the entrance, your gaze settling upon the most beautifully reassuring sight in all of this peaceful land. Set deeply within a sturdy, curved frame of polished brick and heavy oak is a perfectly round, impeccably painted green wooden door. It resembles a massive, protective shield, incredibly thick and undeniably solid, yet radiating an overwhelming aura of gentle hospitality. Right in the exact center of this magnificent green circle rests a large, gleaming brass knob, polished smooth by decades of quiet, contented touch. The faint, dying light of the twilight catches the brass just so, creating a tiny, warm spark of reflection in the cool blue shadows of the evening. This door is the ultimate boundary, a heavy, unyielding guardian that stands between you and everything else in the universe. To look upon it is to understand that you are finally, truly safe. The sturdy nature of the heavy wood grain, illuminated softly by a discreet lantern hanging nearby, speaks of total insulation from the cold, the wind, and the worries of the day. You stand there for a long, quiet moment, simply absorbing the profound visual weight of the door, letting its undeniable solidity anchor your drifting thoughts and prepare your body for the absolute surrender of sleep. With a slow, deliberate motion, you reach out and place your hand against the cool, smooth metal of the central brass knob. It turns with a heavy, satisfying click, a sound that resonates with a deep, acoustic richness in the quiet night air. As you gently push, the massive round door swings inward upon its sturdy iron hinges, moving with a surprisingly silent, fluid grace. It does not creak or groan, but simply glides open, offering a silent invitation to step out of the cool, deep blue night and into the glowing heart of the earth. Instantly, a wave of profound, heavy warmth washes over you, carrying with it a symphony of incredibly soothing domestic scents. You breathe in the deeply nostalgic aroma of old, polished oak wood, dried lavender hanging from the rafters, and the faint, sweet smokiness of a perfectly tended hearth fire. The light that spills out from the cracked door is not harsh or blinding, but a rich, incredibly soft amber glow, burning with the dim, comforting intensity of a warm lantern. This warm illumination acts as a physical embrace, cutting through the chill of the evening and settling directly into your tired muscles, telling your heavy limbs that the long journey is finally, completely over. You cross the wooden threshold, stepping onto a beautifully tiled floor that feels wonderfully solid and smooth beneath your feet. As you gently pull the heavy green door shut behind you, the soft, satisfying thud of the latch engaging seals away the outside world entirely. The transition is instantaneous and deeply profound. The subtle rustling of the night wind, the distant murmur of the river, and the vast, infinite expanse of the starry sky are all completely erased, replaced by the incredibly thick, heavily insulated acoustic silence of the subterranean smile. You are now buried deep within the protective embrace of the ancient hill, cocooned by layers of rich, silent earth. The entrance hall stretches out before you, a masterpiece of curved wooden paneling and soft, shadow-filled corners. The walls bend organically, creating a tunnel of pure comfort that mimics the deeply primal safety of a burrow. Invisible ambient light sources cast a gentle glow upwards along the domed ceiling, highlighting the intricate, hand-carved details of the timber beams without ever revealing their source. There is a small wooden bench tucked neatly into a curved alcove, offering a quiet place to sit, to rest, and to fully absorb the overwhelming realization that you are completely, undeniably safe and entirely ready to sleep. You step slowly past the quiet entryway, leaving the heavy wooden door far behind as you move deeper into the curving heart of the subterranean home. The air inside the smile is noticeably different, entirely stripped of the cool night breeze. Here, the atmosphere is incredibly thick, remarkably still, and wrapped in an almost tangible layer of absolute domestic comfort. Every step you take upon the smooth, polished floor tiles produces only the softest, most muffled sound, as if the earth-sheltered dwelling is actively absorbing the noises of the waking world and whispering for them to settle down. You run your fingers gently along the curved, wood-paneled walls as you walk down the short hallway leading toward the parlor. The wood feels deeply textured and wonderfully ancient, polished to a soft, glossy finish by generations of slow, contented living. There are no sharp corners to navigate, no sudden changes in direction to jar the senses. The corridor flows with an organic grace, gently guiding you toward the warm, rhythmic, pulsing light that spills out from the central room. The profound silence of the environment acts as a heavy, protective blanket, ensuring that nothing from the unpredictable world outside can ever disturb this secluded haven. As you enter the parlor, your eyes are immediately drawn to the heart of the home. A rustic stone hearth built deeply into the curving back wall. The fire within is not a chaotic blaze, but rather a mature, deeply settled bed of glowing crimson embers and slow-burning oak logs. It crackles with a low, rhythmic hum, a soothing, repetitive acoustic pattern that feels as old and familiar as the earth itself. The color temperature of the flames is an incredibly warm amber, radiating a soft 2,700 Kelvin lantern-like glow that masterfully pushes the heavy darkness into the far corners of the room. This light behaves exactly like a classical oil painting coming to life, utilizing the highly evocative technique of chiaroscuro. The center of the parlor is bathed in this golden illumination, highlighting the intricate textures of a plush velvet armchair and the heavy weave of a woolen blanket draped casually over its back. Meanwhile, the edges of the room gracefully fade away into a sea of comforting shadows, painted in deep tones of burnt umber and velvety black. The deep blue sea hues of the night sky are barely visible through a single, deep-set round window. The contrast between the cold night outside and the glowing warmth inside makes you feel impossibly safe. You move slowly toward the hearth, letting the immense, heavy warmth wrap around your body like a physical embrace. This thermal comfort is a defining element of the Shire, an environment where the absence of artificial heating allows one to truly appreciate the deeply organic sensation of a natural fire. The radiant heat gently thaws any lingering tension in your muscles, sinking deep into your bones and telling your nervous system that all work has ceased. There is absolutely nothing left to accomplish today. You sink effortlessly into the plush armchair, feeling the supportive, heavily cushioned upholstery rise up to meet you. The velvet fabric is worn smooth from years of quiet evenings, offering a tactile reassurance that this routine has been practiced perfectly by countless generations. As you lean your head back, you gaze into the mesmerizing, ever-shifting geometry of the glowing coals. The colors transition slowly from bright, piercing oranges to deep purples and velvety blacks as the ash settles. Watching the fire is a hypnotic experience, requiring absolutely no cognitive effort. Your eyes naturally track the slow drift of microscopic sparks as they rise up the stone chimney. With every breath, you inhale the deeply nostalgic, sweet smokiness of the burning wood, guiding your brainwaves steadily downward towards sleep. Resting directly over the hottest cluster of crimson embers is a heavy cast iron kettle. It is a wonderfully simple, unmechanized object, perfectly suited to the anti-industrial philosophy of the Hobbits. The iron is deeply textured, completely black, and incredibly dense, slowly absorbing the tremendous heat of the fire and transferring it to the fresh water within. As the temperature rises, the kettle begins to produce a remarkably subtle, low-frequency hum, a steady vibration that resonates directly through the thick iron and out into the quiet parlor. This humming sound is an auditory anchor, an unchanging note that occupies your language processing centers, just enough to prevent any intrusive, waking thoughts from taking hold. There is no urgency in the kettle's song, no shrill whistle demanding your attention. It is simply a slow, vaporous tune that promises the upcoming comfort of a warm evening tea. You watch with heavy eyelids as a very thin, incredibly soft wisp of white steam begins to curl its way out of the heavy iron spout. The steam dances lazily in the amber firelight, twisting and turning in the still air before vanishing entirely into the dark shadows near the ceiling. The visual path of the steam is perfectly synchronized with the slow expansion of your chest. The incredibly slow, highly anticipated crescendo of the water reaching its boiling point mimics the final deceleration of your waking consciousness. The rhythmic hum deepens slightly, becoming a full, rich vibration that seems to massage the very air of the parlor. You make no attempt to rise from the velvet armchair. The tea will be ready when it is ready, and there is no clock in this earthen sanctuary counting down the minutes. The deeply rooted predictability of this nightly routine is profoundly therapeutic. The boiling water, the intense heat of the fire, and the massive insulation of the surrounding dirt combine to create an environment where the nervous system must surrender entirely to relaxation. As the fire pops softly, releasing a cascade of golden sparks, your body sinks deeper into the heavy cushions. The dim 2700 Kelvin light continues its masterful interplay with the dark umber shadows, gently washing over the intricate textures of the thick woolen blanket resting across your lap. The world outside the round green door has faded into complete irrelevance, replaced entirely by the sensory reality of the softly humming kettle and the dying crimson coals. Your breathing is now indistinguishable from the slow, steady rise and fall of the steam, infinitely peaceful. You slowly rise from the velvet armchair, leaving the low hum of the kettle behind in the warm parlor. Your bare feet pad softly against the smooth floor tiles as you wander deeper into the remarkably quiet, branching corridors of the subterranean home. Here, tucked away in the coolest, most heavily insulated depths of the ancient hill lie the famously renowned pantries, which supplied food for many a party or celebration. As you approach the rounded archway of the cellar, the air loses the intense heat of the hearth and takes on a wonderfully refreshing, crisp coolness. This deeply still air carries the most incredibly comforting fragrance. A rich blend of dark soil, freshly harvested apples, and thick bunches of sweet dried herbs hanging from the wooden rafters. This scent speaks directly to the most primal parts of your brain, whispering a message of absolute security. It is the undeniable olfactory proof of a bountiful autumn, a tactile reassurance that the long months ahead hold absolutely no threat of scarcity. You pause at the threshold, letting the heavy silence of the fully stocked larder wash over you, satisfying your subconscious need for resource certainty before you surrender to sleep. The architecture of the pantry is a masterpiece of rustic design, carved directly into the living earth. The walls curve gently inward, lined with solid oak shelves worn smooth by generations of quiet use. The lighting in this space is masterfully executed, relying on hidden ambient sources rather than harsh overhead fixtures. Lighting is integrated directly into shelves, drawers, and tables, with recessed lights at their bases shining upward to create a profoundly soothing, lantern-like glow. This subtle illumination casts long, soft shadows across the subterranean ceiling, highlighting the natural grain of the timber beams without revealing the bulbs. The space feels infinite, yet perfectly contained. You trace your gaze along the rows of provisions, marveling at the overwhelming abundance that defines the Hobbit way of life. They deeply understand the absolute necessity of good, simple food, viewing their pantries as sanctuaries of peace. Looking at the packed shelves, wrapped in the comforting amber light and the velvety shadows of the cellar, your breathing begins to slow down even further. Every shelf you pass offers a beautiful, classical still life composition, a testament to a world free from the rushed processes of industrialization. Hand-woven wicker baskets rest gently against the curved brick walls, their textured surfaces catching the dim light in a masterful display of chiaroscuro. Next to them sit massive glass jars filled with thick, golden honey, glowing like captured pieces of the afternoon sun against the deep blue and amber shadows. Resting on soft, intricately embroidered linen cloths are countless heavy rounds of pale cheese and crusty loaves of rustic bread. The visual weight of these provisions is profoundly grounding. You can almost feel the dense texture of the bread and the smooth surface of the glass jars just by looking. The colors are muted and earthy, rich burnt umbers, soft ochres, and deep shadows, creating a visual environment devoid of harsh tones. This perfectly ordered, deeply domestic abundance requires absolutely no cognitive effort to understand. It is simple, plentiful, and beautifully safe. Moving further into the silent depths of the pantry, you find the heavy wooden bins where the deeply cherished fruits of the tilled earth are kept. The Shire is an agrarian paradise, and its soil produces an endless bounty. Here, carefully sorted and resting in the dark, are the results of countless quiet days spent under the sun. Cabbages, carrots, potatoes, apples, and corn were widely grown, and the peaty area of the marish was especially noted for its turnips and mushrooms. You look down upon these humble, life-sustaining crops. The deep green leaves of the cabbages are thick and heavy, looking almost black in the extremely dim light. The root vegetables still carry a faint dusting of the rich, dark soil from which they were pulled. The presence of these vegetables anchors your mind firmly to the natural, extremely slow cycle of the seasons. A seed is planted, nurtured by the rain, grows over long months, and finally rests here, completely safe within the deeply insulated walls. It is a slow, methodical journey, mirroring the gentle descent into deep sleep. The acoustic environment of the cellar is perhaps its most relaxing feature. Buried so deeply within the side of the hill, the pantry is entirely cut off from the subtle nighttime noises that drift through the Shire. There is no sound of the wind, no distant rushing of the watermill, no rustling of the oak leaves. There is only a pure, heavy, and completely uninterrupted silence. It is the deeply peaceful silence of waiting, the quiet stillness of things perfectly prepared and preserved. As you stand among the endless shelves, the lack of sound becomes almost physical. A thick blanket that wraps securely around your tired shoulders. Your own slow, steady breathing is the only acoustic event in the entire space. You listen to the rhythmic inhale and exhale of your lungs, noticing how the sound is instantly absorbed by the dense walls and heavy wooden beams. The Hobbit hole actively dampens the world. You close your eyes, letting the infinite stillness overwrite any remaining thoughts of the waking day. Finally, you turn slowly away from the endless bounty, your mind completely satisfied by the overwhelming proof that you are entirely cared for. You walk back toward the softly arched doorway, leaving the crisp air of the cellar and stepping gently back into the deeply warm, amber-lit hallway of the Smile. The transition is incredibly soothing, a shift from the secure chill of the earth to the soft, inviting warmth of the living space. You know that the heavy wooden door is locked tight against the outside world. The hearth fire is keeping the chill at bay, and the pantries are filled to the absolute brim with enough comfort to last through the darkest winter. Every psychological requirement for rest has now been met and exceeded. You are sheltered, warm, and surrounded by a completely predictable abundance. Leaving the well-stocked pantries behind, you continue your slow journey through the silent corridors of the subterranean home. The polished floor tiles give way to a heavy woolen rug, dampening your footsteps into complete obscurity. You are moving deeper into the hill, toward a sanctuary designed for mental solitude. At the hallway's end lies the quiet study, a room bathed in stillness and heavy shadows. Pushing the oak door open, the scent of aged paper, worn leather, and dried lavender drifts out. The air here is wonderfully still, undisturbed by drafts, carrying the weight of countless peaceful evenings. This is a space where the rigorous demands of the waking world are forbidden from entering. The hobbits deeply love peace and quiet, preferring a well-ordered life over the complicated anxieties of the outside world. Here, in the very heart of the earth, that profound love of tranquility is physically manifested. The lighting in the study marks a significant transition in your descent towards sleep. The warm glow of the hallway is left behind, replaced by the remarkably dim, intimate illumination of a single beeswax candle resting upon a massive wooden desk. To light a simple candle is to intentionally choose slowness, turning away from harsh illumination and allowing the room to naturally dim. The flame flickers with a beautifully soft rhythm, casting a small pool of golden light that barely reaches the edges of the desk. Beyond this comforting amber circle, the rest of the room is entirely swallowed by the deeply protective, velvety darkness of the Hobbit hole. This masterful display of chiaroscuro transforms the study into a classical oil painting, where the burnt umber shadows actively press inward, coaxing your tired eyes to let go of their focus. The incredibly subtle dance of the candle creates microscopic, warm reflections on the polished wood, but the light is never bright enough to stimulate the waking mind. Instead, it serves as a gentle focal point, signaling the absolute end of the day's cognitive labors. Your eyelids flutter, feeling the physical weight of the insulated shadows pressing softly against them. You step slowly toward the oak desk, moving with a lethargic grace, as if wading through a thick, warm pool of water. The desk is a magnificent piece of rustic craftsmanship, its surface worn smooth by generations of unhurried thought. Resting within the small circle of candlelight are rolled parchment maps and several thick, leather-bound books, their pages holding the comforting hush of a peaceful history. You reach out, letting your fingertips brush against the cracked spine of an old volume. The tactile sensation of the worn leather is incredibly grounding, a physical reminder of the permanence and stability of the Shire. There is absolutely no pressure to read, no urgent need to absorb information or solve complex problems. These books are old friends waiting patiently in the dark. The hobbits do not understand or desire machines more complicated than a simple watermill, entirely rejecting the rushed pace of the modern era. Consequently, everything in this study is wonderfully manual, deeply analog, and infinitely slow. The mere presence of the heavy, silent books anchors your wandering thoughts, replacing the frantic energy of the day with an unshakable stillness. Beside the books, an old map lies partially unrolled, its edges curling inward toward the warm candlelight. You gaze down at the faded, ink-stained contours of the parchment, tracing the meandering paths of ancient country roads with your heavy eyes. The map depicts a world that is incredibly small, localized, and predictable, perfectly mirroring the insular, comfortable mindset of the Hobbit folk. Following the drawn lines requires absolutely no mental effort. It is a purely visual meditation, a slow wandering of the gaze across a landscape holding no sudden surprises. The roads do not lead to perilous adventures or distant lands, but only to neighboring farms, quiet river crossings, and sleepy forested valleys. As you trace these gentle routes, you realize that there is nowhere left you need to travel. The journey is completely over. The profound desire to simply be at home, nestled securely within the earth, washes over you in a wave of intoxicating warmth. The map becomes a blur of soft colors, the intricate lines dissolving into the dim golden light of the fading candle. The acoustic environment of the subterranean study is perhaps its most powerful sleep-inducing quality. The thick earthen walls are masterfully insulated, completely severing this deeply buried chamber from the lingering noises of the outside world. There is no sound of the wind, no distant rustling of leaves, and absolutely no voices to distract your tired mind. Into this profound velvet silence steps the heavy, rhythmic ticking of a wooden corner clock. The sound is low, resonant, and incredibly slow. A steady mechanical heartbeat that pulses gently through the quiet room. The acoustic pattern is endlessly repetitive, an auditory pendulum that gently rocks your consciousness back and forth. You do not try to ignore the ticking. Instead, you allow your own breathing to synchronize with its infinitely steady pace. With every slow exhale, you sink deeper into the hypnotic rhythm, letting the measured sound massage the last fragments of tension from your weary muscles. The clock does not rush the passage of time. It simply measures out the deeply peaceful moments of the night, reassuring you that the hours ahead belong entirely to rest. The heavy rhythmic ticking of the corner clock gently nudges you to rise from the leather armchair. Your movements are incredibly slow now, dictated by a profound, wonderful lethargy that has settled deep into your bones. You leave the fading amber ember of the beeswax candle behind on the massive oak desk, letting the deeply protective, velvety shadows of the room wrap completely around you. A few slow, quiet steps carry you across the woven rug toward the far wall of the subterranean study. Here, built directly into the curving, earth-sheltered architecture of the hill, is a beautifully crafted window seat. It is a wonderfully private alcove, lined with smooth, polished wood and filled with thick, heavily stuffed velvet cushions that invite absolute surrender. You sink into the plush window seat, feeling the remarkably supportive weight of the cushions rise up to cradle your tired body. A soft, knitted woolen blanket has been left draped across the cushions, and you pull it gently over your lap, letting its heavy, textured warmth anchor you firmly in place. The wool is thick, carrying a faint, nostalgic scent of the meadows, wrapping you in a cocoon of warmth. The space feels incredibly intimate, a tiny, perfectly insulated pocket of comfort tucked away from the rest of the world. You lean your weary head back against the curved wooden frame and turn your gaze outward. Before you is a perfectly round, deep-set window, a quintessential hallmark of Hobbit architecture. The glass is ancient and wonderfully thick, slightly uneven in a way that speaks of slow, meticulous craftsmanship, rather than rushed industrial production. Because of this subtle warping, the glass does not merely show the outside world, it softens it, painting the night with a dreamy, pensive mood. This window is not a fragile barrier, but a heavy, unyielding shield of quietness that protects your sanctuary. The faint starlight barely penetrates the room, stopping just at the sill, creating a masterful, highly defined edge of shadow against the dark interior. It offers a majestic view of the vast, breathing night, while keeping the physical reality of the cool air and the damp earth entirely at bay. You can rest your hand against the thick wooden sill, feeling the incredible solidity of the ancient hill that surrounds the frame. To look through this deep-set glass is to experience the ultimate paradox of absolute comfort. Your mind is allowed to safely wander through the boundless expanse of the dark universe, while your physical body remains completely secured, deeply buried, and thoroughly insulated within the warm, unchanging embrace of the earth. Through the thick, rounded glass, the landscape of the Shire is revealed in a breathtaking display of classical tonalist beauty. The rolling green hills that were so vibrant in the afternoon sun have now been completely transformed by the deep, enveloping dusk. They slumber beneath a heavy, continuous canopy of deep blue sea hues and rich, velvety indigos. The sharp boundaries of the waking world have been entirely erased, replaced by incredibly soft, misty silhouettes that gently bump against the dark horizon. You can see the gentle curves of neighboring hills, their grassy rooftops blending invisibly into the quiet meadows. The winding water, a river that usually sparkles with daytime life, is now just a dark, smooth ribbon of glass reflecting the sky. There is absolutely no movement out there. No hurried travelers on the winding dirt paths. No late-working farmers in the valleys. The entire agrarian sanctuary has collectively surrendered to the necessity of rest. The thick hedgerows and ancient oak trees stand like silent, shadowy guardians, their leaves perfectly still in the remarkably calm night air. This complete absence of activity is a powerful visual sedative. It tells your mind that there is nothing left to monitor, nothing left to anticipate, and absolutely no reason to hold on to the lingering tensions of the day. As your heavy eyes slowly drift upward, leaving the slumbering hills behind, they are met by the awe-inspiring majesty of the midnight sky. Above the quiet valleys, an endless, breathless sea of ancient silver stars drifts incredibly slowly across the dark, beautifully glazed canvas of the heavens. They are not the harsh, blinding lights of a modern city, but soft, glowing pinpricks of pure, untroubled starlight that have watched over this peaceful land for countless generations. A sliver of pale, muted moonlight occasionally peeks from behind a slow-moving cloud, casting a gentle, atmospheric sheen over the sleepy land. The subtle imperfections in the window glass catch the starlight, creating microscopic, warm halos that seem to gently pulse in time with your own slow, steady heartbeat. You watch as a faint, silvery dusting of the Milky Way arcs gracefully over the Shire, a silent river of light flowing through the absolute depths of space. The sheer, incomprehensible scale of the cosmos above stands in perfect, harmonious contrast to the deeply intimate, microscopic safety of your little window seat. Looking up at the stars does not make you feel small or insignificant. Rather, it makes you feel profoundly sheltered, reminding you that the universe is vast, ancient, and entirely at peace with itself. You sit in the quiet darkness, suspended perfectly between the infinite expanse of the starry sky and the heavy earthen warmth of the smile. The profound silence of the room is broken only by the exceptionally soft, rhythmic sound of your own breathing, which is now slowed to a deep, restorative pace. With every long, steady exhale, you feel another layer of physical weight sinking into the plush velvet cushions beneath you. The starry night outside the round window begins to blur at the edges, the crisp silver light softening into a dreamy, hazy glow as your eyelids grow impossibly heavy. The visual boundary between the dark sky and the rolling hills slowly dissolves, merging into a single, seamless blanket of comforting shadows. Your mind no longer attempts to trace the constellations or follow the lines of the landscape. It simply absorbs the overwhelming sensation of total, unshakable peace. You are perfectly insulated from the cold, completely hidden from the demands of the world, and enveloped in a timeless, unhurried quiet. The gentle pull of sleep is now an irresistible tide, carrying your consciousness away on incredibly soft, completely silent waves. Here, cradled within the ancient roots of the hill and watched over by the eternal stars, you finally allow yourself to drift. The hypnotic, rhythmic ticking of the corner clock and the vast, silent display of the starlit sky have successfully drained the very last reserves of waking energy from your limbs. You slowly rise from the velvet cushions of the window seat, leaving the soft woolen blanket neatly folded behind you. The subterranean study is now a masterclass in profound shadow, a sanctuary of pure, insulated darkness that gently guides your incredibly slow footsteps back through the domed archways. Instead of returning to the parlor, your quiet path leads you toward a smaller, perfectly round wooden door situated at the very back of the smile. This is the garden door, a sturdy barrier that opens directly into the lush, tilled earth of the hillside. The brass handle is cool to the touch, and it turns with a deeply satisfying, heavy mechanical click that echoes softly against the curved wooden panels of the hallway. You pull the door open, just enough to slip through, and are immediately met by the gentle, welcoming embrace of the nocturnal world. Stepping over the wooden threshold, you leave the heavy, deeply insulated warmth of the burrow and enter the refreshing, crisp coolness of the midnight air. Your bare feet meet the garden path, stepping onto incredibly smooth, rounded river stones that have been worn perfectly flat by generations of quiet, contented gardeners. The stones hold a faint, lingering memory of the afternoon sun, a subtle warmth that contrasts beautifully with the cooling dew now settling across the Shire. There is a profound, grounding sensation in standing barefoot upon the earth, a physical connection that instantly draws any remaining anxious energy down through your body and releases it harmlessly into the soil. The night air brushes against your cheeks, carrying a soft, invisible weight that feels like a cooling, damp cloth placed gently over tired eyes. It washes away the stagnant air of the day, filling your lungs with a vast, expansive freshness. Every slow, deliberate breath you take out here in the quiet dark feels incredibly nourishing, expanding your chest with the pure, untroubled essence of the agrarian landscape. As your eyes fully adjust to the magnificent, muted illumination of the starlight, the rich agricultural tapestry of the Hobbit garden slowly reveals itself. The Shire folk are deeply devoted to the tilled earth, and this profound love is evident even in the dead of night. To your left and right, massive, heavy cabbages sit low to the ground, their broad, textured leaves unfurling like dark, sleeping roses. In the extraordinarily dim light, the greens of the vegetation have shifted into deep, mesmerizing sea hues, rich indigos, and velvety blacks. The garden appears exactly like a classical nocturne painting, where the sharp outlines of the plants are softly blurred, blending seamlessly into the rich, dark soil from which they grow. You can sense the tremendous, quiet vitality of the root vegetables resting beneath the surface, the turnips and carrots slumbering safely in the cool, damp earth. The sheer abundance of this well-tended plot is a powerful visual sedative. It is a world entirely free from scarcity, a completely self-sustaining sanctuary that requires absolutely nothing more from you tonight. Winding your way further down the smooth cobblestone path, you pass by the beautifully manicured borders where the ornamental plants reside. The vibrant snapdragons, sunflowers, and nasturtiums that proudly displayed their bright colors during the day have now tightly closed their delicate petals against the cooling dark. They are perfectly folded, tucked away safely until the morning sun returns, mirroring your own deep need to close off from the waking world. These sleeping flowers are remarkably peaceful to look upon, their vine-like structures tumbling gently over low, moss-covered brick walls. The pale, muted moonlight catches the heavy droplets of dew that have begun to form on the smooth surfaces of the leaves, creating microscopic, silvery reflections that twinkle like fallen stars scattered across the garden bed. This incredibly subtle interplay of dim light and water requires absolutely no cognitive processing to appreciate. It is simply a beautiful, passive display of the earth settling down to rest. The complete stillness of the flora is incredibly hypnotic, pulling your mind further away from active thought and deeper into the heavy, lethargic rhythm of the midnight garden. The acoustic silence of the garden is matched only by the incredible, enveloping richness of its nocturnal fragrance. Without the heat of the sun to evaporate the essential oils of the plants, the scents of the garden become heavily concentrated, settling thickly in the cool, damp air near the ground. You breathe in deeply, filling your senses with the profoundly comforting aroma of rich, dark potting soil, crushed mint, and the uniquely sweet, earthy perfume of sleeping pipeweed. The broad, fragrant leaves of this beloved Hobbit herb release a remarkably soothing scent that acts directly upon the parasympathetic nervous system, naturally lowering your heart rate and deepening your respiration. This olfactory blanket is perhaps the most powerful grounding mechanism in the entire Shire. It smells of permanence, of deep roots, and of unquestionable safety. To stand amidst the fragrant, heavy air of the sleeping pipeweed is to know, with absolute certainty, that you are perfectly sheltered. The smell wraps around you, a heavy, invisible quilt woven from the very essence of the tranquil, resting earth. You come to a slow, gentle halt at the end of the stone path, standing perfectly still beneath the vast, starlit canopy. Here, completely surrounded by the sleeping garden, you realize that the earth itself is breathing. It is a slow, magnificent respiration, a heavy, rhythmic sigh that rises from the damp soil and rustles the darkest, lowest leaves in the garden. You instinctively allow your own breathing to synchronize with this infinite, planetary rhythm. With every slow inhale, you draw in the cooling, fragrant peace of the Shire. With every long, heavy exhale, you sink deeper into a state of total, unshakable physical relaxation. The boundaries between your tired body and the quiet, agrarian world around you begin to dissolve into the soft, tonalist shadows of the night. You are no longer merely observing the peacefulness of the garden. You have become a seamless part of it. Your mind is as quiet as the closed nasturtiums, your limbs as heavy as the resting stones, entirely prepared for the deepest, most restorative sleep. You step slowly beyond the low, moss-covered brick wall of the quiet vegetable garden, allowing your bare feet to leave the smooth, rounded river stones behind. The path forward transitions seamlessly into the incredibly soft, damp grass of an open meadow. The earth here feels wonderfully cool and deeply refreshing against your skin, providing a continuous, grounding connection that draws every last remnant of waking tension downward and away. You are moving with an unhurried, lethargic grace, wading through the low-lying evening mist that has begun to gather in the gentle dips and hollows of the landscape. The night air is entirely still, carrying only the faintest, sweetest memory of the sleeping pipeweed and the rich, dark soil. With each slow, deliberate step upon the yielding grass, you feel yourself drifting further away from the enclosed, domestic safety of the burrow, yet somehow walking deeper into the overarching, protective embrace of the ancient Shire itself. The sweeping meadow gently descends into a vast, open expanse, known to all the local folk as the party field. During the bright hours of a summer day, this wide green hollow is a vibrant center of community life, overflowing with music, the clinking of wooden mugs, and the joyous, carefree laughter of countless hobbits. But now, beneath the heavy velvet canopy of the midnight sky, the field has been completely emptied of all activity. It has utterly surrendered to the profound, absolute quiet of the deep night. There are no colorful pavilions, no bright lanterns, and no lingering footsteps to disturb the perfect stillness. The total absence of celebration does not feel lonely. Rather, it feels incredibly restful, like a grand, welcoming room that has been meticulously swept clean and prepared specifically for your arrival. The lingering, invisible echoes of past joy have settled deeply into the soil, leaving behind an atmosphere that is uniquely saturated with unquestionable peace and enduring contentment. Rising from the very center of this wide, sleeping meadow is a solitary, magnificent figure that commands the landscape with a gentle, reassuring presence. It is the great malorn tree, a legendary gift of elven grace, and the only one of its kind to take root in this humble, agrarian land. Even from a distance, the sheer scale of the tree is awe-inspiring, yet it never feels imposing or intimidating. Instead, it stands as a colossal pillar of ancient, unshakable stability, a living monument to the enduring resilience of the natural world. Its massive trunk rises straight and true from the dark earth, branching outward into a sprawling, protective canopy that seems to hold up the very stars themselves. To look upon the vast silhouette of the party tree in the incredibly dim light is to understand the concept of permanence. It is a visual anchor for your drifting mind, a completely steadfast focal point in a world that is otherwise slowly dissolving into the dreamy, formless shadows of sleep. As you draw closer, the unique visual beauty of the mallow tree reveals itself as a masterful display of classical muted tones. Unlike the dark oaks and elms that border the distant edges of the Shire, the smooth bark of this magical tree is the color of pale, untarnished silver. It catches the microscopic, distant starlight and reflects it back as a remarkably soft, ethereal glow that gently illuminates the immediate darkness. The leaves, even in the complete absence of the sun, hold on to a dim, dreamy golden hue that contrasts beautifully with the deep blue sea hues of the surrounding night. The visual effect is entirely hypnotic, resembling a majestic tonalist painting, where the thick physical texture of the silver bark meets the smooth, glazed darkness of the sky. The tree seems to generate its own incredibly subtle, warm light, creating a small, highly insulated pocket of visual comfort that beckons your tired eyes to rest upon its shimmering surface. The acoustic environment of the open field is defined entirely by the incredibly slow, rhythmic rustling of this single, massive tree. The midnight breeze, which is so gentle it can barely be felt against your skin, moves continually through the vast canopy of golden leaves. This movement creates a low, sweeping, oceanic hush that sounds exactly like the slow, steady breathing of the earth itself. It is a natural, acoustic lullaby, a continuous whisper that acts as a profound auditory pendulum, rocking your waking consciousness gently back and forth. The sound of the rustling leaves perfectly masks the absolute silence of the empty field, providing your language processing centers with a continuous, meaningless, and highly soothing noise to focus upon. You find yourself effortlessly matching the slow rise and fall of your own chest to the rhythmic swaying of the branches overhead. With every sweeping sigh of the golden leaves, your physical body becomes increasingly heavy, sinking deeper into a state of total, unresisting relaxation. You finally step beneath the sprawling, protective reach of the heavy branches, entering the deep, silver-lit sanctuary at the base of the trunk. Standing here, you can almost physically feel the immense, unseen network of roots anchored securely deep within the dark, insulated earth below. This enormous root system mirrors the vast canopy above, gripping the soil with an unbreakable strength that has weathered countless passing seasons. It represents a profound, deeply rooted endurance, an unbroken continuation of life that asks absolutely nothing of you but your peaceful presence. The knowledge of these deep roots acts as a powerful psychological anchor, reminding your weary mind that the foundations of this quiet world are completely unshakable. There is absolutely no storm that can uproot this peace, and no sudden change that can disrupt the absolute safety of the surrounding valley. You are standing upon the firmest foothold in all of Middle-earth, a place where the anxieties of wandering and the complexities of the waking day are permanently laid to rest. With a final, deeply exhausted sigh, you lean your heavy shoulders gently against the smooth, silver bark of the eternal guardian. The wood is remarkably cool and solidly supportive, absorbing the entire weight of your tired frame. You close your eyes, letting the dim, golden glow of the leaves fade into a soft, velvety darkness behind your heavy eyelids. The slow, ancient pulse of the living tree seems to synchronize perfectly with your own fading heartbeat, blurring the final boundary between yourself and the peaceful landscape. The sweeping, rhythmic rustle of the canopy washes over you in endless, silent waves, carrying away the very last, lingering fragments of conscious thought. You are perfectly tethered to the earth, entirely shielded from the vast, open sky, and completely enveloped in the timeless, unhurried quiet of the Shire. Here, resting securely against the ancient roots of the party tree, you finally allow yourself to surrender completely to the irresistible, downward pull of a deep, dreamless slumber. You slowly push yourself away from the protective silver bark of the magnificent malorn tree, leaving the quiet sanctuary of the party field behind. Your bare feet guide you effortlessly down the gentle, rolling slope of the meadow, moving through the incredibly soft, dew-dampened grass. The Shire is vast, yet it feels wonderfully intimate under the heavy, velvet canopy of the night. Every step you take carries you further into the profound, absolute stillness of the agrarian valleys. The cool midnight air brushes past your face, carrying the earthy, rich scent of the sleeping hills, the damp moss, and the faint, sweet memory of distant, heavily laden orchards filled with sleeping apples and pears. The sheer predictably of this agricultural haven wraps around your tired shoulders like a heavy, protective cloak. There is absolutely no reason to hurry. The path before you is not a journey to be completed, but a slow, rhythmic wandering through a completely safe, intensely familiar landscape. The deeper you walk into the quiet hollows, the more the lingering weight of the waking day dissolves into the dark, incredibly peaceful atmosphere. The world has narrowed down to the simple, comforting sensation of the cool earth beneath your heels and the slow, measured drawing of your own breath. At the bottom of the long, grassy slope lies the winding river, known simply to the local folk as the water. In the bright hours of the afternoon, this river dances with light, bordered by thick, vibrant green reeds and the trailing branches of ancient willow trees. Now, under the deep, enveloping blanket of the midnight sky, it has transformed into a dark, perfectly smooth ribbon of flawless glass. It flows with a deeply quiet, unhurried grace, reflecting the breathtaking canvas of the heavens above. The surface of the river captures the deep blue sea hues and the muted silvery starlight, creating an inverted universe that drifts silently through the sleeping meadows. A sturdy, gently arched bridge, made of ancient, heavily weathered stone, spans the dark water. Its rustic, unpolished architecture standing as a quiet, enduring testament to countless generations of peaceful, uninterrupted life. The bridge invites no travelers tonight. It simply waits in the dark, a beautifully static monument bathed in the incredibly soft, hazy glow of the moon. To stand upon the bank and watch the incredibly slow, steady movement of the river is to understand the pure, relentless flow of peace. Nestled tightly against the curving bank of the river stands the old wooden watermill, a cornerstone of the Shire's simple, unmechanized existence. The Hobbits do not desire loud, complicated machines. They build in perfect, quiet harmony with the natural elements around them. The architecture of the mill is deeply rustic and wonderfully heavy, constructed from massive oak timbers and thick, solid brickwork that seems to grow directly out of the damp, dark earth. Its steeply pitched roof is covered in ancient, textured slates, perfectly insulated against the cool night air. The structure is bathed in deep brown and velvety black shadows, blending seamlessly into the dark silhouette of the surrounding willow trees. A single, small, deep-set window in the upper loft of the mill emits a microscopic, remarkably dim, camber glow. This tiny spark of lantern light is the only sign of habitation, a deeply comforting beacon that pierces the cool, deep indigo shadows of the riverbank. It speaks of a quiet, unseen miller who has long since banked the fire and surrendered to the heavy, peaceful blanket of sleep, leaving the river to do its slow, eternal work. The absolute stillness of the building anchors your drifting thoughts, providing a flawless visual representation of rest. Attached to the side of the stone structure is the massive, heavy timber water wheel, the very heartbeat of the quiet valley. It turns with a remarkably slow, deeply rhythmic groan, a sound that is entirely organic and infinitely soothing. The incredibly thick wooden blades dip into the dark, glassy water, scooping it up with a gentle, repetitive splash before rising again into the cool night air. The wet wood of the ancient wheel catches the absolute faintest glints of ambient starlight, creating microscopic, warm silver reflections that appear and vanish in a hypnotic, endless cycle. This heavy, continuous turning produces a low, resonant vibration that you can feel through the soft earth beneath your feet. It is an acoustic pendulum, a steady, mechanical lullaby that rocks your conscious mind back and forth, back and forth. The sound of the groaning wood and the falling water perfectly masks the absolute silence of the empty landscape. It provides your tired language processing centers with a continuous, deeply relaxing white noise, preventing any sudden intrusive thoughts from taking hold. The wheel does not rush. It simply measures out the peaceful, unhurried moments of the night. You step closer to the water's edge, standing perfectly still upon the smooth, rounded river stones that line the quiet bank. Here, the continuous, soothing rush of the river washes over the shallow rocks, creating a thick acoustic blanket of pure, uninterrupted sound. The water burbles and sighs, a gentle liquid whisper that harmonizes flawlessly with the heavy, rhythmic groaning of the turning mill wheel. You close your heavily weighted eyes, allowing this incredibly rich, immersive soundscape to completely envelop you. With every slow, deliberate exhale, you imagine the dark, cool water washing over the very last, lingering fragments of your wandering thoughts. Any remaining tension, any microscopic worry left over from the waking day, is gently lifted away and carried downstream, disappearing forever into the deep, velvety shadows of the sleeping Shire. The total isolation of the riverbank, the heavy insulation of the surrounding trees, and the hypnotic, repetitive flow of the water combine to create an environment of absolute psychological safety. Your breathing is now entirely synchronized with the slow, eternal turning of the wheel. You are perfectly grounded, incredibly heavy, and completely prepared to let go of the physical world, ready to sink deeply beneath the quiet, dreamless veil of a perfect night's sleep. The deeply hypnotic, rhythmic turning of the ancient water wheel and the continuous, soothing rush of the river have successfully washed away the very last lingering remnants of waking thought. Your body feels wonderfully heavy now, anchored securely to the earth by an overwhelming, completely natural sense of lethargy. With an incredibly slow, deliberate motion, you turn away from the smooth, glassy surface of the dark water, leaving the quiet, shadowy sanctuary of the riverbank far behind. Your bare feet guide you softly up the gentle, dew-dampened grassy slope, moving steadily away from the cool valley and back toward the deeply insulated, rolling hills of the Shire. The midnight air is perfectly still, brushing past your face with a refreshing, damp coolness that carries the wonderfully faint, sweet memory of the sleeping pipeweed and the rich, dark, agricultural soil. There is absolutely no need to rush, no urgent destination demanding your attention, and no lingering anxieties to carry with you. Every incredibly slow, measured step you take upon the smooth, winding dirt path feels like a gentle, physical descent into profound relaxation. Above you, the vast, breathless sea of ancient silver stars continues its endlessly slow drift across the deeply glazed, deep blue canvas of the night sky, watching over your peaceful, unhurried return with a silent, deeply comforting permanence. As you crest the top of the gentle slope, the beautifully rounded, earth-sheltered architecture of the burrow emerges once again from the deep, velvety shadows of the hillside. The perfectly round green door waits patiently in the dark, still slightly ajar from your earlier departure, functioning as a silent, unwavering beacon of absolute domestic safety. From the narrow crack in the heavy wooden frame, a single, incredibly soft sliver of deeply warm, Haingin by Chamdo camber light spills gently out onto the smooth cobblestones of the garden path. This warm illumination cuts through the cool, deep blue sea hues of the midnight air, creating a breathtaking, masterful display of chiaroscuro that highlights the rich, unpolished texture of the ancient brickwork. The contrast between the vast, sleeping expanse of the cool night and the glowing, intensely intimate interior of the smile creates an overwhelming psychological pull. It is a visual promise of ultimate shelter, a quiet reassurance that the long journey of the day has finally reached its absolute conclusion. You slowly reach out your tired hand, letting your fingertips brush against the cool, smooth metal of the heavy brass knob, feeling the incredible, unchanging solidity of the door that stands ready to completely seal away the outside world. You step carefully over the worn wooden threshold, leaving the damp, starlit garden behind as you pass back into the glowing heart of the subterranean home. With a remarkably slow, deeply satisfying motion, you pull the heavy, massive round door inward, guiding it until the iron latch engages with a soft, heavy, and incredibly final click. The acoustic transition is beautifully instantaneous and profoundly deep. The faint, subtle rustling of the distant willow trees and the low, constant murmur of the river are entirely erased in a single heartbeat, replaced by the incredibly thick, heavily insulated silence of the earth-sheltered smile. The deep, ancient soil of the hill wraps completely around the curving walls, creating a flawless acoustic vacuum where only the exceptionally soft, rhythmic sound of your own slow breathing can be heard. At the very same moment, the crisp, refreshing chill of the evening air vanishes, immediately replaced by a rich, heavily baked-in warmth that radiates from the deepest, most quiet corners of the burrow. The air inside is completely still, thick with the deeply nostalgic domestic fragrance of polished oak, dried lavender, and the sweet, lingering scent of a beautifully tended hearth fire. You are entirely, unquestionably, sealed inside a sanctuary of pure peace. You wander slowly down the curving, wood-paneled hallway, your bare feet making absolutely no sound against the smooth, polished floor tiles. The hidden ambient lantern light seems to have dimmed even further during your quiet walk in the garden, reflecting the natural biological slowing of your own heavy heart rate. You return to the remarkably cozy, perfectly proportioned parlor, where the atmosphere has become almost tangibly thick with an overwhelming sense of lethargy. The crackling flames of the hearth have long since faded away, leaving behind a magnificent, deeply settled bed of glowing crimson and burnt orange embers. These incredibly hot, dying coals breathe with a remarkably slow, steady rhythm, pulsing softly beneath a thin, snowy blanket of soft, white ash. The light they cast is exceptionally dim, a deeply rich, radiating amber glow that barely manages to reach the center of the dark room, leaving the beautifully curved walls entirely swallowed in extremely heavy, comforting shadows of deep burnt umber and velvety black. The incredible thermal warmth radiating from this quiet, sleeping fire washes continuously over your tired body, melting away the very last microscopic traces of physical tension stored within your heavy muscles, and telling your entire nervous system to completely surrender. Moving with the incredibly slow, fluid grace of someone entirely ready for deep sleep, you sink effortlessly into the plush, deeply worn cushions of the velvet armchair, sitting perfectly beside the dying hearth. The sturdy, handcrafted wooden frame groans exceptionally softly, a deeply familiar, highly comforting acoustic response that welcomes your complete physical surrender. Resting patiently across the seat is a heavy, beautifully textured, hand-knitted woolen blanket, left there in quiet anticipation of your inevitable return. You reach down with impossibly heavy arms and pull the thick wool gently over your lap, feeling its wonderful, deeply grounding weight settle firmly across your tired legs. The rough, rustic texture of the yarn acts as a highly tactile anchor, wrapping you in a cocoon of immense, impenetrable warmth that completely insulates you from the surrounding shadows. The parlor is now infinitely still, holding absolutely no demands, no expectations, and entirely no concept of passing time. You allow your weary head to tip gently back against the extremely soft velvet upholstery, gazing mindlessly into the slowly fading, mesmerizing crimson glow of the dying embers. As your eyelids flutter and grow impossibly heavy, your entire body understands, with profound, unshakable certainty, that the waking day is absolutely, completely over. The incredibly deep, hypnotic warmth of the dying hearth has done its final, beautiful work, melting away the very last traces of waking tension from your heavy limbs. With a wonderfully slow, remarkably lethargic grace, you push yourself up from the plush velvet armchair, leaving the soft, deeply textured woolen blanket resting peacefully across the cushions. Your bare feet pad silently against the smooth floor tiles as you step out of the cozy parlor and back into the quiet, curving tunnel of the subterranean hallway. You are moving deeper now, leaving the communal spaces of the home far behind and venturing into the most private, profoundly insulated depths of the ancient hill. The soft, ambient lantern light that gently illuminated the main corridors now begins to slowly fade away, replaced by the incredibly rich, deeply comforting shadows that gather in the narrow, winding passageways. The air here feels noticeably cooler and immensely heavier, carrying the pure, unadulterated essence of the dark earth that completely surrounds you. Every incredibly slow step you take feels like a gentle descent into the very heart of the world, a slow, deliberate retreat from the complex, demanding surface into a space of absolute, unquestionable security. There is a profound psychological comfort in this physical descent, an instinctual understanding that you are returning to a sanctuary where nothing can ever reach you. At the very end of the dimly lit, organically curved corridor lies the final destination of your long, quiet journey. The wooden door to the bedroom stands slightly ajar, waiting patiently to receive you into its deeply atmospheric, velvety darkness. As you gently push the heavy oak frame open, you cross the final threshold of the waking world, stepping into a completely isolated, perfectly proportioned chamber that represents the ultimate expression of domestic safety. This room is situated at the very deepest point of the earth-sheltered architecture, buried under layers upon layers of thick, highly protective soil. Because of its profound subterranean placement, the bedroom is entirely shielded from the subtle, lingering noises of the outside night. There is no sound of the wind, no distant rushing of the mill wheel, and absolutely no faint rustling of the distant oak leaves. The acoustic silence here is not merely the absence of sound. It is a physical, almost tangible substance that wraps securely around your tired shoulders like a heavy, deeply insulated quilt. The room actively absorbs the noise of the universe, creating a flawless, breathtaking vacuum of pure peace. The concept of home is deeply intertwined with this feeling of ultimate familiarity and impenetrable shelter, where the weary mind can finally let go. The visual environment of the buried chamber has been masterfully stripped of all complexity, deliberately designed to provide absolutely no stimulation for the tired eyes. The lighting is incredibly sparse, consisting only of a microscopic, deeply warm amber glow emanating from a tiny, rustic iron stove tucked neatly into the curved corner of the brickwork. This faint, dying ember provides just enough illumination to cast incredibly soft, barely visible shadows across the smooth wooden floorboards, while leaving the gently domed ceiling entirely swallowed in a sea of rich, comforting darkness. Your eyes do not need to process any intricate patterns or bright contrasting colors. They are simply allowed to rest within the vast, deeply soothing shades of burnt umber and velvety black. The air in the room is wonderfully still and perfectly tempered, carrying the clean, highly nostalgic fragrance of freshly laundered linens, dried lavender, and the faint memory of distant summer meadows. This beautiful, heavily concentrated olfactory blanket speaks directly to the most primitive, resting parts of your brain, quietly confirming that all of your physical needs have been thoroughly anticipated and completely fulfilled. You are entirely cocooned in an atmosphere of unhurried, perfectly preserved stillness, a space where the rigorous demands of the waking day simply cease to exist. Resting securely in the center of the dark, curved room is a magnificent, heavily built wooden bed, a masterpiece of simple, unmechanized craftsmanship, perfectly suited to the quiet, agrarian philosophy of the Shire folk. The incredibly sturdy oak frame is wonderfully solid and completely unyielding, offering a profound sense of physical stability that anchors the drifting mind. Layered heavily upon the wide mattress is a beautiful collection of thick, handmade patchwork quilts, carefully stitched together using soft, deeply textured fabrics in muted, earthy tones. The sheer physical weight of these blankets is incredibly grounding, a tactile reassurance of warmth and absolute protection against the cool, damp earth that surrounds the burrow. You reach out your impossibly heavy arms and gently fold back the thick layers of fabric, revealing the remarkably soft, pristine white sheets beneath. The simple, repetitive action of preparing the bed requires absolutely no cognitive effort, serving as a highly predictable, deeply soothing physical mantra that signals the final conclusion of your evening routine. As you stand beside the welcoming mattress, feeling the heavy, velvety darkness of the room pressing gently against your skin, you realize that there is absolutely nowhere else in the entire universe you need to be. With a final, deeply exhausted sigh that echoes softly against the curved earthen walls, you slip slowly beneath the thick, welcoming layers of the heavy quilts. The transition is incredibly profound. The moment your tired body settles onto the remarkably soft, supportive mattress, you feel the gentle, anchoring weight of the thick woolen blankets settle firmly across your chest and legs. This massive, heavily insulated physical pressure acts as the ultimate tactile sedative, instantly lowering your resting heart rate and drawing the very last, lingering remnants of anxious energy out of your weary muscles. You sink deeply into the plush, yielding fabric of the sleeping pillow, feeling it rise up to perfectly cradle the heavy weight of your head. The incredibly dim, hangin baichamdo amber glow from the tiny corner stove begins to fade entirely from your vision as your eyelids flutter and close, shutting out the physical world for the very last time. The profoundly thick, heavily insulated acoustic silence of the subterranean chamber wraps completely around you, leaving only the exceptionally slow, infinitely steady, and deeply rhythmic sound of your own breathing. You are perfectly warm, completely hidden from the vast world above, and cradled securely within the deeply protective roots of the hill. The conscious mind finally dissolves, effortlessly giving way to the irresistible tide of pure, dreamless sleep. The tiny, microscopic ember within the iron stove finally surrenders its incredibly dim, warm amber glow to the overwhelming velvet darkness of the subterranean chamber. As the very last trace of physical light vanishes entirely from the highly insulated room, a profound and absolute blackness settles gently over your tired eyes. This is not an empty or frightening dark, but rather an incredibly rich, heavily textured canvas composed of deep burnt umber, rich indigo, and the softest ivory black. It is a protective, visual blanket that perfectly mirrors the immense physical weight of the handmade quilts resting across your resting body. Without the distraction of sight, your spatial awareness slowly begins to dissolve, blurring the distinct architectural boundaries of the curving brick walls and the heavy wooden door. You are no longer simply lying upon a sturdy oak bed inside a cozy hobbit hole. You are becoming an indivisible part of the quiet, slumbering earth itself. The incredibly thick layers of ancient soil that surround the burrow act as an impenetrable, timeless shield, completely sealing you away from the vast, unpredictable universe above. Here, buried deeply within the quiet, unseen roots of the rolling hills, the physical world gently falls away, leaving only the pure, unadulterated sensation of total, unshakable sanctuary. In this flawless, magnificent vacuum of sensory peace, the only remaining anchor to the waking world is the exceptionally slow, infinitely steady rhythm of your own breathing. You listen to the quiet, rhythmic inhale and exhale of your lungs, noticing how the remarkably soft sound is instantly and completely absorbed by the heavily insulated walls of the quiet room. With every long, deliberate breath you draw in, you inhale the deeply soothing, remarkably still air of the earthen burrow, carrying the incredibly faint, nostalgic memory of the sleeping gardens above. With every heavy, prolonged exhale, you release the very last, microscopic fragments of residual tension that have been hiding deep within your weary muscles. Your resting heart rate continues its incredibly slow, downward descent, perfectly synchronizing with the silent, ancient pulse of the vast agrarian valleys that stretch out endlessly beyond the wooden door. There is absolutely no rush, no urgency, and completely no requirement to measure the passing moments. Time itself has fundamentally altered its pace, slowing down to a thick, lethargic crawl before finally coming to a complete, incredibly peaceful halt. The relentless, forward momentum of the day has been entirely suspended, replaced by an infinite, static ocean of absolute stillness that gently rocks your fading consciousness. In this flawless, magnificent vacuum of sensory peace, the only remaining anchor to the waking world is the exceptionally slow, infinitely steady rhythm of your own breathing. You listen to the quiet, rhythmic inhale and exhale of your lungs, noticing how the remarkably soft sound is instantly and completely absorbed by the heavily insulated walls of the quiet room. With every long, deliberate breath you draw in, you inhale the deeply soothing, remarkably still air of the earthen burrow, carrying the incredibly faint, nostalgic memory of the sleeping gardens above. With every heavy, prolonged exhale, you release the very last, microscopic fragments of residual tension that have been hiding deep within your weary muscles. Your resting heart rate continues its incredibly slow, downward descent, perfectly synchronizing with the silent, ancient pulse of the vast agrarian valleys that stretch out endlessly beyond the wooden door. There is absolutely no rush, no urgency, and completely no requirement to measure the passing moments. Time itself has fundamentally altered its pace, slowing down to a thick, lethargic crawl before finally coming to a complete, incredibly peaceful halt. The relentless, forward momentum of the day has been entirely suspended, replaced by an infinite, static ocean of absolute stillness that gently rocks your fading consciousness. The landscape of your mind, which was once so busy with the complex, demanding thoughts of the waking hours, is now incredibly quiet and beautifully empty. The lingering images of the winding dirt paths, the beautifully arched stone bridges, and the heavily shadowed watermill slowly break apart and dissolve into the surrounding, formless dark. They fade away like a very low, thick evening mist, dissipating gently over the smooth, glassy surface of a dark river. You make absolutely no effort to hold on to these drifting thoughts. Instead, you allow them to slip quietly through your fingers, watching with heavy, uncaring eyes as they merge seamlessly into the deep blue sea hues and velvety shadows of the night. Your internal vision has become a highly abstract, deeply atmospheric tonalist nocturne, completely devoid of sharp lines, rigid structures, or sudden movements. It is a masterful, sweeping display of pure, atmospheric mood, utilizing the softest, most heavily muted tones to represent the complete dissolution of waking reality. The incredibly heavy boundary between active thought and passive rest has entirely collapsed, opening up a vast, incredibly comforting space where the tired mind can finally, truly let go of its endless, exhausting vigil. There is nothing left to plan, nothing left to remember, and absolutely nothing left to solve. The profound simplicity of this mental emptiness is incredibly intoxicating. A powerful, natural sedative that pulls you ever downward into the quiet depths. As the last remnants of conscious thought quietly evaporate into the silent air, you experience a magnificent, overwhelming sensation of physical descent. You are sinking, incredibly slowly and with absolute safety, deeper and deeper into the incredibly soft, yielding plushness of the mattress. It feels as though the sturdy wooden bed has entirely lost its rigid form, transforming into a deeply supportive, liquid pool of warmth that perfectly cradles the heavy contours of your exhausted body. This downward pull is totally irresistible, a gentle, gravitational tide that carries you safely away from the shores of the waking world. You are drifting downward through the protective, insulating layers of the ancient hill, moving past the thick, slumbering roots of the great oak trees, and settling into the very bedrock of the peaceful Shire. This profound, downward journey is the ultimate physical expression of surrender, a complete and total release of every voluntary muscle. You are perfectly tethered to the incredibly solid, unshakable foundation of the earth, ensuring that no matter how deep you drift into the vast, uncharted territories of sleep, you will remain completely anchored, entirely safe, and beautifully protected from all harm. The heavy, handmade quilts press gently against you, a constant, tactile reminder of this unwavering, absolute security. The incredibly soft, completely silent veil of sleep now descends fully over your heavy, unresisting mind, wrapping you in its timeless, deeply comforting embrace. You have finally reached the very bottom of the long, quiet descent, arriving at the ultimate sanctuary of a pure, undisturbed, and entirely dreamless slumber. In this profound, velvety darkness, the concept of self gently fades away, merging perfectly with the infinite resting spirit of the quiet agrarian landscape. You are the stillness of the deep subterranean earth. You are the silent, microscopic starlight filtering through the sleeping golden leaves of the malorn tree. You are the remarkably slow, eternal flow of the dark, glassy river. There is absolutely no separation between your incredibly peaceful, resting body and the vast, deeply insulated world that completely surrounds you. The night stretches out before you as an endless, beautifully static expanse of pure, uninterrupted rest, completely free from the unpredictable anxieties and the rushed, chaotic demands of the coming dawn. You will remain here, perfectly sheltered, incredibly warm, and completely undisturbed, resting deeply within the absolute safety of the ancient hill, until the morning sun finally returns to gently wake the world. For now, there is only the beautiful, heavy, and infinite peace of the dark.